Township Committee meeting to order. Rod, will you lead us in a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by sending a copy of the notice along with the agenda of this meeting to the Atlantic City Press, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers, stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, April the 21st, 2014, at the municipal building, Mays Landing, New Jersey. Mrs. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mayor Silva?
Here. Let's take a moment of silence for private reflection, and please keep in mind the passing of Perry
Betty.
Fetty. He passed away last week, and is a longtime resident of the community. Okay, first item on the agenda, adjournment executive session. I don't believe there is any. There's no confirmation of executive session. Were there any additions or deletions?
No.
There were none. Early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearing. Bill?
First item we have on the is Peg Capone regarding item 5A, the budget.
Good evening.
Hey, Peg.
Peggy Capone, Oak Street, Laureldale. I would like to know if attorney's fees have been budgeted for the lawsuit Aileen Dix has filed against the township.
I would direct you not to respond to that.
In fact, you know, Peg, as I look at this, it was early public item on agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearing. There's public hearing on the budget tonight. So if you want to make any comments about that after, I'll let you come in on it, okay?
Well, I think, okay. He
Just
said
on
not
cap.
to make any comments. That's fine. I believe it is important to reflect the few people who are still on committee who have demonstrated true courage when this township was facing a severe structural deficit. Roger Silva, Amy Gatto, Mr. Jacobs isn't here tonight, but he was the business administrator who had just stepped in and worked with the committee to find cuts within the staffing levels to help close the gap. And as a result, the last 2 years, we have had a zero tax increase. And I'm just concerned that based off of Mrs. Dix's lawsuit, that we're going to see a tax increase associated. And I don't agree with that. So I'm just going to make a comment that I believe every time that I'm driving through a street loaded with potholes because the township spent their revenue on lawyers' fees instead of paving the road, that we can thank Mrs. Dix for that result. I'm disappointed, and I think you should withdraw anything. You have to, I know from being on a school board, working with 9 people, all with varying opinions, working together. And believe me, there's people who don't like me, and I don't like them, but we work together. And I don't get paid for it. I don't get health care. I get nothing for it. I can say I get aggravation, but the reward is seeing the type of curriculum that we turn out to help the students in this district. And I think it's an embarrassment that the people who are working to helping this township, Roger, Amy, that you've done in the past, you've been attacked from outside, now you're being attacked from within. And I'm very sorry for it, for you to be experiencing that. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else, Phil?
Yes, Bruce Stry, item 9A.
Bruce Stry, for the record, Mr. Mayor and committee.
I don't have a specific question on business registrations, but maybe a general one as far as the procedure for granting business registrations. Part of the ordinance, one part of the ordinance requires businesses to be in compliance with all zoning regulations. So can you give me some detail on how our zoning department qualifies business registrations to you to be granted?
Go.
I know our zoning officers here. I guess specifically are there any physical on-site inspections or any kind of compliance with that part?
Excuse me while I change my hat, Mr. Mayor. I'm the zoning officer.
How appropriate.
Sorry, well, Joan's not here to yell at me.
Rita yelled just as loud.
Very briefly, what we look at is the use permitted in the zoning district that's being proposed. That's the concern.
Right.
And that usually triggers whether or not a recommendation is made. The process is application is filed with the clerk's office with a checklist or sign-off sheet that gets circulated through zoning onto fire prevention and construction, just to make sure that nobody's got any outstanding permits or issues involved with those. Sometimes I can approve requests right out of the box. Sometimes there's issues that are raised, and there's been at least 1 or 2 times where, it's been held in abeyance for a while till they could bring themselves into compliance, and a couple denials along the way, too.
Thanks. Oh, the reason I bring it up is as a member of the zoning board, we had a case not too long ago, not to go into detail about that, but years past, and I'm not so much now, but there weren't some approvals for business registrations were granted, but but it was not exactly taking place. So the applicant used that as a cause for approval because the applications weren't, due diligence was not taken. So that's the reason for my concern, among other things. So
it's a good, Phil, just to find out from my own information too, when the zoning office is looking at, say, a renewal on a license, do you look to see if a business has been, have had any complaints or has been cited for anything? Do you look at that kind of thing before you sign off?
Obviously, if there's any unabated violations. First off, if they're coming in for a renewal, that we really don't. I'm trying to think, do we get those?
No.
No. See, they don't get circulated to zoning.
Oh, okay.
Per se. That will go to fire prevention, make sure that there's no issues there on their end. And to go back very briefly, Mr. Stry, I believe it was probably in 2008 or 2009 when they started circulating this checklist. I believe there was an amendment to make sure that fire prevention, specifically, there were no issues there, and that's when the clerk's office made up this the form for us all to sign off. Prior to that, going back and checking some of the records, there was no formal review.
right. So I know there's been some improvement.
The case that you had, Bruce, was that an existing business or was it a new registration? Do you know?
No, it was a long-time existing business, and it was sort of semi, not active, so business registrations were used as a continuing use when
Gotcha.
it was a very complicated situation, but that's not the reason I brought it up. It's what triggered it. The other thing I brought up, several months ago, signs. And is there, one of the main reasons is for Mr. Sartorio, is there a physical inspection just to see briefly if signs are in compliance or not? Another problem, perhaps trash disposals, some of those kind of creep up. So a question is there a physical?
Phil, you generally just only respond to inquiries or complaints, or is there a mechanism where you go out and check that periodically?
With the registration, it's basically it's a paper check. There's no site inspections conducted now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for your comments. Anyone else?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. First item on the agenda Item 5, the municipal budget, resolution to be read, the 2014 budget by title only. Rita, would you read the resolution, please?
Yes. Resolution to read 2014 budget by title only. Whereas NJSA 40A:4-8, as amended by Chapter 259, Public Law 1995, provides that the budget be read by title only at time of public hearing if a resolution is passed by not less than a majority of the full governing body, providing that at least 1 week prior to the date of hearing, a complete copy of the approved budget as advertised has been made available for public inspection in the municipal building, the county library located in our municipality. The public officer delegated the responsibility for delivery of the copies to said library has completed a certification forwarded to the governing body that such delivery was made, and copies have been made available to the clerk, made available by the clerk to persons requesting them, and whereas these conditions have been met, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, that the budget shall be read by title only.
Do we have a motion on the resolution?
Move the resolution.
Second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments to the resolution? Rita, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. This is a public hearing on the 2014 budget. Does anyone in the public wish to speak?
Again, Bruce Stry for the record. I know you mentioned before you won't answer specific questions, but maybe in general about the lawsuit that was filed. I know that in the budget preparation process, there are funds or not so much funds, but estimates on liabilities, possible liabilities. How would hypothetically, a lawsuit that was filed after the budget process as far as line items would be entered into the budget, and then a large expense or potential, how would that be addressed going forward after the budget is adopted, as far as, because the expenses can be quite large. Do we borrow money? Do we cut line items to fund this? Is there a process, not specific, but in general, how would the township handle that?
It would handle it like any other unanticipated source of spending.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clear at this point when that will be incurred and whether it will be incurred in the budget year 2014 or later.
Mm-hmm.
There are mechanisms in the law for emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
There's potential coverage issues. It would be handled in the normal course of things as you would any other unanticipated cost.
So there is a mechanism for...
The example I would give you is that, if we had an unusually large number of snowstorms this year,
Mm-hmm.
it required us to spend a whole lot more than we budgeted for snow removal. You can't take it from another line item until November 1st.
Right.
But there are ways to do it. I
Okay.
don't think I can go beyond that.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Bruce.
That was a good question. It made me think of another one. I think the four of you should back up the individuals who are named, because you have to be unified. When something's wrong, I don't care what party you are, you should stand behind what you know is right. So please support the employees, support your committee people. I know they've reached across the aisle. This is a time where it's not political. This is a time where you need to stand behind people who are right. And if you were going to cut it from any department, my favorite department, the largest expenditure here at Hamilton Township is the police department. Because I have felt the wrath of that department. I went to court over a parking ticket. and 1. And people have complained about being harassed about the curfew. And I know each of you are aware of waste. So don't be afraid, because we have seen how crime has decreased since there's levels of crime. But I forget the classification, but it has significantly dropped since the 90s. And I think if you did your research, people like to scare you into believing. And 3 years ago, when you cut, I think it was 13 people from the police department, they swore that crime was going to go through the roof. Well, it didn't happen because they had the most to gain from it. But you held firm, you did the right thing, you helped people in this township. You put their tax burden ahead of a special interest. So please, support your employees and your fellow committee people. Thank you.
It's a public hearing. Is there anyone else in the public care to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Rita, can that count as the resolution, or do we have official resolution to close the public hearing?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Item D, resolution, local examination and municipal budget. Rita, we don't have to read that entire thing, do we?
No, sir, you do not.
Move the resolution.
Second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? Rita, can we have a roll call on that, please?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item D, resolution to amend the 2014 operating budget. The public hearings to be May the 5th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments?
Could we have some explanation on this, please?
Pardon?
Could we have some explanation on this amendment?
Well,
Sure.
it's detailed out in our agenda item review sheet in our packet, but basically, this is as a result of us getting the pension refund money in, and we
I don't
were...
have a review sheet.
You don't
I only
have
have,
a 5E?
I don't have
You
it.
don't have
5E.
5E?
I beg your pardon, I have 5D. I was looking at 5D, I beg your pardon.
So this was the decreased pension, decreased budgeted pension allocations, and we had talked at I think it was the last meeting or the meeting prior, about our options if we got the reduced pension allocation, what we could and would do with it, and we said if and when we got it, we would do this amendment.
You were concerned too, I think at the time, Aileen, that the road repair would, and patching and whatnot would go beyond the money that was allocated, so we did put a large portion into that.
One of the things I was concerned about, and I think Mr. Sandman's going to remember it, March 17th meeting, there was about 145 line items that went to tax certificate sale, which was about double what we've normally experienced, and the title the title search fees are about close to $200 each, and my question there was whether they were increasing the legal fee line in the tax collector's office to cover all of the anticipated tax sale work for 2014. Bob, do you know, was there any discussion with you?
There was not.
Does anybody know if we increased that line?
No, Cindy? No.
So if we don't have enough money to do the tax foreclosures, we can't foreclose. Is that where we are?
It sounds like we would handle it like any other...
I can't hear you, Amy.
It sounds like we would handle it like any other unanticipated expense, just as Mr. Salmon spoke about the other example.
Well, but this is anticipated because the tax sale had already happened. So we already know what to expect. And last year it was like 75 lines. This time it's more than 140.
What
right.
happens is, once that complaint is filed, oftentimes people redeem.
Redeem.
And when they redeem the sales certificate, they have to pay the attorney's fees and costs associated with that certificate. So if 20% of them redeem, you're going to get 20% of cost and fees back. When the certificates are ultimately, when the judgment's entered and the property sold, it's back-ended into that as well.
But we have to
Of
front
course,
it.
that comes out of the budget now, I get that.
Yeah, that was my point. We have to front the title work fees probably in September and October to prepare for the in-rem filing before year end. If people redeem in January, we'll get money in January, but doesn't help us in 2014. Is that our understanding, Bob?
Well, I think that's correct, but I don't think that certainly the amount of the attorney's fees would increase, but not proportionate to the number.
Yeah, I said fees because it was title search
The
fees
title
I was
fees are-
concerned
yeah,
about.
It's $200 times the difference of last
Okay.
year's number plus this year's.
This year,
Okay.
okay. All right.
You have a motion and a second on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
Motion is second on the floor. Can we have a roll call, Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and carried.
Thank you. Item number 6, discussions. Formal action may be taken. A, the recommendation to designate the hot dog cart vending contract at the Cove, a veteran set-aside contract.
I have a question. You have to be a veteran to have a hot dog cart, so why,
I don't know, someone put this on the
yeah,
agenda.
what would be the benefit, this veteran, suggesting a veteran set-aside contract, you have to be a veteran to have the cart, and you have to be a veteran operating the cart, so that doesn't seem like this really fits in.
I think it fits in perfectly, and I think what Mr. Jacobs was trying to do was just memorialize one type of contract that is going to be identified as a veteran set-aside contract, because it's a perfect example of one.
But what's the dollar value, because there isn't one?
Well, that's the only thing. I don't think there is a dollar value. I'm not aware of one.
Yeah, that's kind of it, because they don't pay us. We just are glad to have the service from a veteran.
No, we don't pay them.
We don't pay them, and they don't pay us.
I would like to echo the words of Amy Gatto, that this is a perfect example of a veteran set aside to the nth degree. And this involves a person who is a disabled vet to begin with.
Don't make any assumptions.
Okay, let's not make any assumptions that who it's going to go to, because it's certainly up and open to a veteran.
Yeah, I think probably, if I had to guess what Mike was thinking, is if we designate it, then we're going to practice going through the process for the first time.
Makes sense.
And I'm kind of looking at, okay. So even though there's no dollar value, if we set it aside as the contract, then we practice going through the first time process.
Process of reviewing and
Right.
everything else. And
All
I
right.
think
I
the
do.
other item that he had indicated on there was, unless you specifically waive it, the requirement to provide all insurance is required by Jeff.
Mhm.
That-
And that includes workers' comp.
Yes.
Right.
I think
Which-
workers' comp
which-
is going to be a conversation later in this meeting anyway.
Yeah. It would present an issue, but let's see where it goes.
I also, in reading this, it says that if approved, staff will post a notice on the township's website to obtain quotes from vendors to pay the township for this vending opportunity. I think, as we just indicated, we don't expect to be paid for this, and what I really think we're looking for is service. So I would ask that we look for the service that's going to be provided and not for payment. Theoretically, if one vendor offered $5 and another $10, and the one offering the $10 would get it, and that's not really what we're about. We're looking for the service.
All right.
And I think we went around in circles on the workers' comp anyway, because a hot dog cart owned by a veteran and operated by a veteran who has no employees, there's no basis to have workers' comp. And coincidentally, because maybe now is the time to say it, there's an issue where some of our professional advisors are apparently being put at risk because they're not providing insurance. And again, tie it right back to the GIF, my question is, employees write RFP language. Employees have made requirements in the RFP language. Whether we saw it and agreed to it or didn't isn't the point. Does the GIF require Mr. Sandman's law firm to give us their workers' comp, Mr. Remington Vernick to give us their workers' comp, Mrs. Bowman Associates to give me their workers' comp. And if they don't give it to them, are they fired? I mean, we chose these people. These are our professional advisors, and now tie it right into the single-person hot dog cart and workers' comp. I think we need to have a meeting with the JIF and find out what we have to do and what we don't have to do, because I think this is off base.
Well, not necessarily. If you look back to the request for qualifications, I think part of it was an understanding that this would be provided. And of course, we should always listen to JIF in this respect, that what they're recommending has merit.
But did they recommend is my question.
Yes, they did.
Ingrid is nodding her head, yes.
If you want to eliminate it, that's an issue that's going to require further discussion. And realizing that it could have certain consequences in terms of what you're exposing this township to.
No, I'm not exposing anything.
That's a healthy discussion.
Absolutely. I don't want to come in and find out my professional advisors that I voted for got fired.
No.
Well, as it states in Mr. Jacobs' report, the township's RFQ, in Mr. Jacobs' report and our departmental reports, the township RFQ specifically included language which required all these professionals to provide these insurances. The next step will be staff placing them on notice that they will have a deadline to provide this information.
I read it, that's why I brought it up. I tied it to the workers' comp on a hot dog
Making
cart.
it sound like we are clueless in what we're doing and we have a plan of action.
No, not at all.
In terms of the item on 6A, Mr. Mayor, I would make a recommendation that we kind of have a nod of the head that, yes, we agree with putting this contract under the veteran set-aside, but that we not necessarily take action on the item based on the conversation needed around workers' comp and the JIF for this particular item.
Or paying money.
So you're making that in the form of a motion?
No, I'm saying we shouldn't take action.
We shouldn't take action. That's fine. Does everyone agree with that?
We should just take action about it.
We should not take action on this particular item until we resolve the JIF question and whether the vendor is to pay.
Okay.
Yes.
I would like the recommendation that we waive the JIF requirement on this particular item, because my understanding is that would cost more than the expected revenue from the service being provided.
I don't feel comfortable making that decision, Mr. Gouchard, without information. I would want to revisit, actually, Mr. Sandman's, I think, analysis that you did on that last year when we talked about this, because there was a lot of back and forth with regard to the sole proprietorship and things like that. So I think all the legal work has actually been probably done based on the questions last year. So we probably, maybe if you could resend that work from last year, and then I would be okay with continuing the discussion, but I'm not comfortable voting on waiving the workers' comp right now.
So let me suggest the legal work was done, and we made a decision last year, and I don't see any reason why that decision should be different now.
Because
I would say again that in speaking to the JIF representative, that these are recommendations. They are not the law, so to speak. And it is up to us to decide whether having workers' comp, for instance, with the hot dog cart individual, still present a risk that Hamilton Township wants or doesn't want to have. There are situations where someone inadvertently helped someone in their job, and they were sole proprietors and were very badly injured. And this is not the exact words of the injury, but it has put that into the JIF's vocabulary, that you really have to, they highly, highly recommend it not be waived. But there was something that was said that maybe the veterans have something to help out in this situation. And I don't know what that is. That hasn't been explored. So perhaps we should put it aside until we know all the ins and outs of that. because God forbid if someone lost a limb and was, paid for the rest of his life in a insurance suit.
Well, sorry, you finished?
Yeah.
My only comment is I don't think that this is in the same category as the professionals who, when they signed the original contract, there was a requirement that they provide the service. That's in an entirely different level than I think this is. So I'm not sure that they're...
Yeah, I agree.
Do we know, and we don't really, are there any exemptions or considerations for veterans?
That was all in the research.
Was it in the report?
I think that was
He
done.
does.
I'm trying to remember it. It's,
Frankly, I don't recall.
okay.
Yeah.
Can we just set it aside till the next meeting and get that
I think
information?
the important thing is, the committee is okay with the policy, for lack
Yep.
of a better term, of this
Yep.
being part of the set-aside, and we'll work out the details going
Okay.
forward from here.
Well,
All right with that? Everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That will require a resolution doing that.
So I did have a question, though. Does this require the 2 quotes?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
How it's handled by administration, we'll get to.
Okay.
And the ordinance does address it, Rodney. But if you're going to designate this contract as one of the veterans set aside under our recently passed ordinance, you need a motion, a second, and a vote.
I'll make the
I'd like
motion.
to, I'll second it.
Any questions or comments?
Only
Only
to designate it as a veteran set-aside contract.
That's right.
That's all. Rita, let's have a voice vote on this, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes. Thank you. So we can continue this at the next meeting with regard to those other matters. Okay, good. Number 7, public hearing and adoption of ordinances. A, 1766-2014, the bond ordinance for $1,900,000 for capital improvements. Phil, are you all right with that? You've seen it, right? Okay.
Yes, this is...
Just a public hearing.
It's
It's a
public
public
hearing.
hearing. Does anyone in the public wish to speak on that?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adopt 1766-2014?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please, Mrs.
Martina?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Thank you. Excuse me, Rita.
That's okay. Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. Item B, 1767-2014, appropriating unexpended proceeds from the sale of previously issued bonds and notes to finance cost of additional capital improvements and taking related actions.
Before this is introduced for public hearing, Roger, I would like to have some real discussion on this. As long ago as a year and a half ago, this idea of consolidating old bond ordinances, residual money that hadn't been spent, as a reappropriation ordinance, and then the money could be directed for a capital project. The understanding I had was that I was to sit with Mike and discuss the concept and where we were going with it. At a recent meeting, I don't know if it was March 17th, it could have been a meeting in February, the comment was made here about starting to draft this reappropriation ordinance, which is what's on the table now. The serious issue I have with it, starting with number 1, in the whereas paragraph, there are 4 bond ordinances dated 1999 in the listing. But to go through all of the bond ordinances, which number approximately 12, I didn't count them exactly, there is no dollar amount listed with what you would be gleaning from each ordinance. So I have no dollars to work with. Going back to the 4 from 1999, and understanding I got this in my hands after the close of business on Thursday. Good Friday was a holiday, Saturday was Saturday, Sunday was a holiday. I started to go through my agenda package and I see this, and I start looking at the recently filed annual debt statement that was due for January 30th, 2014. Didn't see anything that was helpful. Went to the annual financial statement filed February 10 or 11. Didn't get anything helpful. Went to the 2012 audit. Went to the breakdown of ordinances that are listed on approximately page 76. Went to the 2011 audit, went to the 2010 audit, and I'm starting to list some information of what these different bond ordinances were supposed to pay for and take care of. At 2 o'clock Easter morning, I can't sleep. I'm thinking, how am I going to conclude this? 3 o'clock, I get up and write the note down. Where's the official statement from the bonds you issued in 2009? 4:15, I finally get up and start looking for it, which I found it, then I went back to bed. 8 o'clock, I started working with the official statement dated July of 2009, and I went in the closet and I got the 2004 audit. So these are all the materials on my living room floor that I'm picking through, trying to understand what this list of ordinance numbers is. So now I'm taking you back to the first 4 listed as 1999. 3 of them are listed in the are not listed in the 2004 audit, which to me means they were gone, whether they were packed into the 2001 general obligation bonds that were authorized. I don't know, because I don't have those records. I know, that's a surprise, I don't have a record, right? The next item, the 4th item, 1351-99, is listed in the 2004 audit as a 0 balance. So there is no money to glean. The next one is 1369 from the year 2000, and that was something to do with fire and rescue. And maybe there's $636 there as shown on page 89 of the audit. If we had a leftover $689 that we could have bought a couple radios for the fire department, we should have done it years ago, not leave it sit there for 10 years, and it's borrowed money, so I think that means we're paying interest on it, or we did pay the interest. 1531 is the Main Street money, $278,000. That number is clear to me because I can extract it out of audits. To go through all the rest of them, I'm not going to bother, but I'm going to tell you that on October 18, 2010, which is a document I provided to Mike by sliding it under the door yesterday before I left town, and Phil has it, we were talking about it a few minutes ago, and a worksheet that I whipped up for myself. There were bond ordinances canceled by this Township Committee on October 18, 2010. And 6 of the numbers on this list are listed in that resolution as having been canceled, and the money would have been then placed in capital surplus, which could have been used for a capital project in 2011 or 2012, whatever. My main issue is that, number one, I feel that this ordinance, 1767, should have each of those ordinance numbers all the way back to 1999, listed individually with the amount of money extracted out to come down to the $355,000 that we're trying to reappropriate for current capital projects. Most importantly to me, what I was conversing with Phil and Bob and almost holding up the meeting is the one ordinance, 1403-2001, is landfill closure money. And we have had a couple of meetings over the last year, year and a half. Bob was at the one in July of last year where he learned a tremendous amount of information over the issues facing the final closure of the landfill and the redevelopment of it. To include this $34,084.32 in this reappropriation ordinance is stripping the money we need for landfill closure expenses that may be borne by the taxpayers in 2014. And so I clearly do not want that $34,000 stripped. Obviously, I've done the best I can in 2 holidays and a Saturday to collect the information. I had no advance warning on this. I wish I did.
Isn't it understood that Trevor had received grants to deal on several grants? And I know they totaled pretty close to about $800,000 to do the work that was necessary for the closure on the landfill?
Sometimes things come up that you don't expect, and I think that that's, Bob, I'm going to ask you for your assistance, as I don't want to say something regarding the landfill closure and the issues we're having. I don't want to go too far. So I'm going to, I've made my point, and I would like to find a way to pull the $34,000 out of this. Bob, if you or Phil can explain, we might need some money. That's what is clear in my mind.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question.
Go ahead.
I think out of all that, I heard that you wanted a list by ordinance of the dollar amounts. Did you ask our CFO for that list?
Now, you know I'm not permitted to do that, Ms. Gatto.
Well, did you email Mike and ask?
Yes, I did.
For the CFO to provide that list?
No, I didn't ask him who he should ask to do the work. I simply indicated that was an issue.
Okay. All right, and Madam CFO, do you have a list?
I have a copy of the capital status report.
Would you come up to the mic, Cindy?
I have a copy of your capital status report, which lists each balance that's in every one of these ordinances. I'd be happy to answer that question for you if I may. There are two landfill ordinances. One is the 1403 for 2001 that Ms. Dix has specified that she didn't want canceled. There is also another one for $50,000 that we are not, we're not canceling anything. All we're doing is reappropriating them into a
new bond.
A public works projects that can be used for any type of a public work projects.
Understood.
Inclusive of the landfill closure, if that's what your concern is.
So you're saying in 1403-01, in addition to the $34,000 I picked up, there's another $50,000 that will remain within that 1403-01?
In 1433-02, there's $50,000. And we're not
Say it
touching
again,
that.
14?
In 1433, which is a 2002 ordinance, there's $50,000 that we're not touching.
Okay, and that's, I wouldn't have picked that up because that wasn't on this list.
Yes.
So we still will have $50,000?
Yes, that's correct.
I think that's takes care of it. Phil, you think that'll take care of it? Based on what we know right now?
Again, it's my understanding that, first off, Trevor Hauser's group, I think a total between the two grants is like almost $1.4 million for the investigations. Secondly, as part of the redevelopment, their decision to move forward is they would take the property essentially as is, so that, you know, any costs associated with the landfill will be for the perimeter areas that are not part of that property. So
And that's the perimeter area is what we might need money for. And that's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Thank you for the phrase perimeter areas, because I didn't come up with that, but that's my concern. We need money for this. Do you think $50,000 is adequate?
That's not really a fair question.
Yeah, and
Okay,
even if
that's-
it's not, the $34,000 that we're reallocating into this would still be available potentially if we needed it, because we could put any landfill project under public works projects.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, no risk.
Strictly repurposing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Reappropriating, yes. Okay,
You're right now?
yeah, but these 1999 ordinances that are not in any audit or financial statements, where are they coming from?
We provide the information to your bond counsel, and that's the way he wrote the ordinance. If you wanted
So
it
how-
more detailed, then
If you have a paper there that I could see, that would make it easier than reading it.
this is a copy of your capital status report.
Roger, you can continue, I'll just look it over.
Sure.
It's a
Thank
public
you.
hearing.
It's a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public wish to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Move to adopt 1767-2014.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions or comments? Rita? Who,
The
lady who just
CFO.
spoke? That's Cindy Lindsay. She's the CFO.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Cindy, can I just keep this and make it simpler? Thank you.
Rita?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Thank you. Item number 8, introduction of ordinances. Public hearing to be held May 5th, 2014. A, 1768-2014. An ordinance accepting Block 1127, Lot 301 from the County of Atlantic. Bill, just real quickly, just a real brief synopsis on this. I know what it is, but go ahead.
This is the approximate 29 acres located immediately south of the Hess School Complex. It's currently county open space. Last year, actually in 2012, committee entered an agreement with the county to allow us to subdivide the property. These 29 acres will be turned over to the township for some form of future recreational use, either by the township or in conjunction with the schools, and then they'll take the balance of the land of that tract, and they're going to be turning that over to the Natural Lands Trust, I believe.
Bill, and as you face Hess School, that's the property to the left of the field, right?
Yeah, towards Summers Point, Mays Landing Road.
Okay.
Do we have to provide recreation on those properties?
It's an open space property. No, we don't have to provide recreation on
Okay.
there. It's available
Okay.
for that use, though.
Excuse
move
me,
to introduce.
excuse me, Phil.
Sorry.
As you face Hess School, did you say it was on the left or on the right?
All right.
It's on the right. It's
on the right,
it's
going
towards
to
Summers
Mays
Point,
Landing.
Mays Landing Road,
Okay.
yes.
I was thinking it was the other
And
way.
what's interesting about that, that's, how many acres was that?
29?
29, plus or minus.
Is that Pinelands? Is that
Yes.
Yes.
not buildable?
Yeah,
so
on the
to
other
speak?
side of the street is CAFRA.
It's Pinelands. It's a rural development area.
Mhm.
So that's basically in the area where we wouldn't be able to run sewer lines to provide any services anyway.
Even though they exist. Yeah, okay. So what's your pleasure?
Move to introduce.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you.
A public hearing will be May the 5th.
Great. Number 9, consent agenda.
Move consent agenda items 9A through H.
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments?
I do have a comment
Which one?
on item C.
Do you want to pull it out, or do you want to just make the comment?
No, I don't want to pull it out, just make the comment. Just
Okay, sure.
want to remind or point out to the committee that this authorization for participation in South Jersey Power Cooperative and bid for natural gas and acknowledging the lead agency as Camden County is the same type of arrangement that was being proposed for electrical aggregation.
I don't think so.
How is it different? It's just
I know
that-
we were out to bid in the past. We're in an electric co-op with, I believe, Hess Corporation, and we, the township government, buys our electric as a third-party provider from Hess. As I understand it through public purchasing, is that there's a co-op, and we are joining into the co-op to buy natural gas for the municipal government, Hamilton Township, just for the heat of this building, the heat of Public Works building, that type of thing, not for the people who live in the houses or the businesses on our streets.
Oh, that's right, yes. This is
Completely
just,
different.
it's just for the township.
Correct,
Yes.
just for the township government.
Yes, just for the township government, but it's the same type of arrangement. That's the only point. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Number 10, approval of the April 7, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
So move.
I'll second it. Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
3 ayes and 1 abstention, Rita. Motion carries. 10B, payrolls and bills, bill list totaling $742,743.37.
So move.
A motion in, do I have a second? Second. Any questions or comments to the motion? Have a roll call, Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes, adopted.
Number 11, Personnel, resolution to appoint Samantha Arrowsmith, a part-time records clerk at the rate of $13.85 per hour, contingent upon successful completion of a background investigation, start date to be determined by the Chief of Police.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments to the motion?
Just to point out, it's filling a vacant position. It's not adding anything new.
Thank you for that comment. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, reports. Phil?
Nothing to add to my written report, Mr.
Okay,
Administrator.
thank you. Mr. Solicitor?
Nothing to add.
Okay.
Well, I've got to say something, Mayor.
I was going to say something in your behalf, but go ahead.
Thank you. We're proposing to advertise the 2014 road program and the Leapy Tract drainage basin remediation projects this week. We'll probably be sending the notice to bidders to the clerk's office on Wednesday for advertisement on Friday. Also, just for the public's edification and for your knowledge, Mayor, you already know, Mrs. Dix, you already know, we're meeting with the Tavistock board tomorrow. We've invited representatives from both bonding companies, with the transition engineer for the board, couple of attorneys, a couple of other interested parties, to basically discuss the transition report, discuss the outstanding punch list and the bonding and the direction we're going to head going forward.
At this juncture, do we know if the developer's going to be there?
To be perfectly honest, Mayor, I don't know if he was invited.
Why would that? Okay, I'll leave it. I don't understand why he wouldn't be there, but go ahead.
So that meeting takes place at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and obviously we'll report back to committee at the next meeting.
I have a real positive comment. The basin behind Timber Glen, the new one that they worked on, has really been doing a great job draining.
That's good news.
It is. It's draining. Take a ride through there, you'll see it. And of course, obviously, with the other thing while we were talking, and I did ask Mr. Smith to take a look at it, we did close down the hockey courts because of some damage over the winter with the severity of the weather. Put a lot of large cracks in on the surface of the hockey court, and thanks to the work of the Public Works Department, I know Brett has had his people out there starting to work on that now, and hopefully over the next number of weeks that those things will hold and they'll be able to utilize the courts again. But I did ask you to look at it, and would you please try to get some information back to Phil and anyone, the rest of the committee, so they know the status of it?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else, Bob?
No, Mayor, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Township Committee. Judy.
I feel as though a comment about the Township Committee working together is always in the forethought of my mind, and will do whatever is right for the township at all times. So I don't think that should be a concern. We all of us, well, speaking for myself, are very dedicated to the township and its people, and will act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Aileen?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have quite a few things. First, I'll go to Bob Smith. Saturday, I went to MISPA and Harding Lakes. The contractor from the October 7 contract to tear down those two structures has now nailed his sign on 2 trees and 1 house. The pre-demolition minutes, you called them pre-construction minutes, indicated a 10-day notice. As of Saturday, when I talked to the neighbors, they had not yet received their 10-day notice of commencing tearing down these structures that we awarded the bid October 7th. So when? When will they get the 10-day notice?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised they haven't received it as of yet. I spoke to the contractor from Near Eyes Construction Rentals on Thursday, and they emailed me a copy of the asbestos abatement plan, which I forwarded to our asbestos inspector to review. I know that they were initiating their extermination program in advance of the demolition. I know that they had done their vibration testing. My understanding is originally they were supposed to start the week of the 14th. Then it was pushed back to Monday, but since we just got the abatement report, we need the opportunity to review it. I'm actually surprised they haven't made their notifications. I made a note to call the contractor tomorrow morning to see when the notifications will be made.
Okay.
One thing I will add on that, I believe it was Wednesday, they did bring in the stuff to construction and zoning
For the demolition
demo permits,
permit?
yes. And I know on the zoning side, I issued the demo permits Thursday. So
Okay.
it's up to construction to issue their permit then.
All right. Second topic is the parking lot for across the street. And I had a comment from someone with a handicap, and I know she's going to have a real problem walking from over here to over here. We need to talk about this parking lot, and I know what you just said, but I have an email from the beginning of August, I believe August 5th, where I commented that we need to talk about vacating the alley. We have not talked about it. The alley, there is no ordinance yet to vacate the alley. We need an ordinance to create a mid-block crosswalk so people can get from the parking lot across the street to come into the building. That's 2 ordinances. There's possibility of a 3rd ordinance that will be contentious, that will make no parking on 13th Street. 3 ordinances have to be drawn up. While we take the time to do that, and yes, we could introduce on May 5th and adopt on May 19th, but that still is another 4 weeks out. Would it be prudent to, now that, Bob, you gave me the documents and I've checked with the county clerk and finally it is on record for public view, that we own Lot 5 across the street, which makes our parking lot, if anybody's geographically educated like I am, that parking lot looks like the state of Utah with one corner cut out. Lot 5 is that corner. I've had conversation with Pinelands that when they did the threatened and endangered species and the archaeologicals and everything, they didn't go by a meets and bounds and stay within the 4 property lines. They would have done the area. So in all likelihood, we could get a very quick clearance on Lot 5 to add it into this while we're working on these ordinances. Is that the better move to make on behalf of taxpayers? Because that parking lot's a $500,000 project. Would it be better if we include that piece of land in now than just have a piece of woods as a corner of our parking lot? From an engineering standpoint, I'm not putting you on the spot, Bob.
Well, let's start with question number 1. We had discussion regarding the alley vacation, and it was actually made a condition of the zoning board approval. So the alley vacation has to take place.
I said we, I meant we.
I'm sorry.
When I said we, I meant we.
Right.
Not employees or other boards.
Well, but either way, regardless of whether or not we were going to do it, it was kind of
condition.
It was made a condition of the approval.
That was March, right? March 24th, I think.
Well, no, I think it was actually made a condition of the use variance approval.
January.
And I had some discussions with Mr. Wendt, and we had almost gotten to the point where we were going to obtain title of that property, and it was prudent to wait until we obtain title of the property, because that way, when it's vacated, both halves go to the township. There's no additional
correct
land to go to any other property owners. Once we have clear title of the property,
we have it.
Then we can proceed with the vacation of the alley. It's not going to hold up construction. It's not going to hold up any part of the project. But now that we have title of the property, we can do the vacation. The second issue was the mid-block crosswalk, and I had actually sent an email to Mr. Jacobs to discuss that issue, the alley vacation as well as the mid-block crosswalk. And with regard to 13th Street, there's no point in in adopting or introducing an ordinance until such time as the parking lot is complete, because at this point in time, people are going to continue during construction to a certain extent less, but they're going to continue to park on 13th Street. And it was the discussion that I think it was the consensus that we would wait until the parking lot was constructed and then enact the ordinance prohibiting parking along that whole stretch of 13th Street.
But that's the concept that needs discussion, because I have an opinion that I had voiced in another forum about that there should not be a 100% 24/7 ban on parking on 13th Street.
Well,
We can work around it, but I don't think it should be a 100% ban. We have a home across the street, and they shouldn't be banned from parking their guests. But we can hash that out at the point we start to talk about drafting an ordinance. Whoever's going to draft it, I don't know if Mr. Sandman would get to do that or somebody else, but I think we should have our thoughts together on what should be in it before we do it, instead of trying to amend it and twist it around. But that takes us back now. Go ahead. Let's go to Lot 5.
Well, just to finish, it's certainly up to the
Township Committee to lead.
Township Committee to decide to do that. However, part of the driving force to the parking lot was to prevent people from parking along 13th Street, because we had the head-in parking.
Understood. I understand.
And I'm sure that Township Committee would, and I certainly don't want to speak for them, but offer no objection to allowing guests of those two houses during off times to park. It is a public parking lot. But, I mean, I think it's in the best interest of the safety of the motoring public to adopt the ordinance prohibiting parking along 13th Street. Because, again, safety was one of the driving forces of constructing that parking lot. With regard to Lot 5, if we were to incorporate Lot 5 into the parking lot, it would basically require a redesign of the parking lot. It would require a resubmission to Pinelands. And one of the things you might want to take into consideration is one of the issues that the zoning board professionals came up with was that they were concerned about buffering along Decatur Avenue to the backs of those residences. And we're proposing to use plantings from the No Net Lost Forestry Grant to plant some additional material in the Decatur Avenue right-of-way to give them a little bit of buffer. If we were to square off that parking lot, now you're going to get the parking area closer to those residents who front along Route 50.
Understood.
So it kind of provides a little bit of an additional buffer. Not having that corner there, it keeps the parking lot a little bit further away from those residences. And we are, in fact, providing 80 additional spaces. And I certainly understand that if we needed the additional spaces, it might be prudent to construct them, but I'm not 100% sure we need, in addition to the 80 spaces that we're already constructing.
So we're just going to have Lot 5 sit there as vacant land?
As a buffer.
Yeah, but again, that's
all right.
Township Committee's decision. We take direction from committee. We'll proceed whatever direction. However, it might be prudent to leave that as just a vacant open space and creating a little bit of an additional buffer to the parking area.
I think it's regrettable that we're spending this kind of money for a parking lot and we didn't absolutely maximize the number of spaces, because I have had debates and actually I've been out back when the snow wasn't on the ground and I could count the striped spots. And I don't know if I was at 115 and there's supposed to be 217. Well, there might be 100 behind the police building, but I didn't go over there to try to count those because they're not available to the public, only to the police side of the building. I think unless somebody else has a comment on the parking lot, I think I've done the best I can do. I just wish this had been included all along. But be that as it may, let me take you over to the Leapy Tract. I'm concerned about the basin. I think we're borrowing $200,000 to work on that basin. Am I correct in that recollection?
I think our estimate was just under $300,000.
$300,000 for the basin. What will be the impact on the surrounding farmlands with what we're doing with that basin? Are we going to in any way negatively impact the farms?
Well, actually, hopefully it'll have a positive impact on the adjacent farms, because right now, when the basin overflows, it negatively impacts the farm just to the south of the basin. Upon completion of the remediation activities, we're hoping that the basin is going to properly drain, and it will have a positive impact on the use of the adjacent farm.
Of the other land.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any, this is going back 50 years probably, was there any investigation into what is now known as rural development, used to be called Farmers Home Administration, for any work they did out there on those farm fields 50 to 60 years ago? I know something happened out there, I don't know exactly what. The word tile system is what's in my mind.
That's correct. There was a tile drain system installed on the adjacent farm and partially on the township's property on the Leapy tract. And
when it was the Leapy tract, Leapy Farm, it had this installed, and we bought it, so we have it on our property now. That's my understanding. Okay.
And the tile drain system was to assist in draining the farm fields to facilitate farming. However, we've been given direction by Cape Atlantic Conservation District that we are not to use that tile drain system for drainage of the basin. They actually required us to write a letter indicating that we were not going to use it for dewatering of the site nor for pumping out of the basin.
Who'd you have to write the letter to?
Cape Atlantic Conservation District.
Shore Conservation?
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
The property owner was working with DEP to get a designation for the farmland, and it created some issues. And one of the concerns was that the township was going to use that tile drain system. So at this point in time, we're on record with Cape Atlantic per their request that we are not going to use that tile drain system to facilitate drainage of the basin.
Okay. All right. The next topic is Smart Growth Committee that I chair. I've been trying to get a meeting since March 10th. Phil, this is more, I'll let Bob breathe a little bit over there.
Thank you.
My request in my email for a meeting had to do with Judy. As you know, there was a story in the newspaper or something on the radio involving Tuckerton and blight, and we certainly have a blight issue around our town these days, and I wanted to sit and talk with Judy as my deputy and Phil and whomever else is invited into the private meeting to discuss the code enforcement effort, what we can do about blight, these burned out houses that are sitting around and not much is happening. The other two topics were the landfill, which we've touched on, and the cotton mill. I would like, today is Monday, if it's possible, before the end of this week, that we can pick a date. Mr. Sandman would need to be in attendance regarding the Industrial Commission and the landfill, and then just pick the date and I'll make my calendar fit. I have an 11:30 meeting on Wednesday, and we have the 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, but that's all I have on my calendar right now.
Mr. Mayor, I have a little bit of an issue of asking the solicitor to attend a meeting without the governing body authorizing it.
It's the Industrial Commission solicitor that would be attending.
I did attend the last one as
well.
Okay. Quality of Life Committee had a meeting on March 18th. We talked about the road programs and updating the pavement management system, which goes back to 2004. We had a second meeting scheduled for March 27th, which was canceled and has not yet been rescheduled, and the items that were listed were Earth Day, Clean Grounds, and Clean Communities Program, and I indicated that, Rodney, we needed to have a discussion of the operation of the Cove and policies to be adopted for the operation of the Cove for the 2014 season, which is starting, I think, the 21st of June. So I would like to see that meeting get scheduled again. And I believe we had received in the past some sample policies from another town that we could look over and see what can we plagiarize, I guess is the right word, not rewrite what's already out there that we could share. So I'd like to see that get scheduled. And the last...
There was a request made to schedule that again, but I didn't really follow up on it. It hasn't happened yet, but yeah.
Okay.
Work on that.
And my last thing probably will cost a little bit of money, but I was speaking with Mr. Sandman before the meeting, and I had also spoken with him probably by email over the last 6 weeks or so. Mrs. Anderson's office has been under too much stress since August when they lost one of their staff members, and We haven't made sure that a substitute or something was brought in so that all of the work that was needed in that office, and it was extraordinary because we had 2 special elections, one in August, one in October, get ready for the November 5th election. Every election is the same amount of work, whether there's one question on a ballot or a whole series of questions, and Mrs. Anderson has not had the adequate time to get our minutes done. There's a list of minutes that aren't done, including executive session minutes, and her style of minutes are critically important to all of us at this point with the detail that's in it, and I think that we need to look at hiring a transcriber to come into the clerk's office, to sit with Mrs. Anderson and be able to transcribe the minutes like a court stenographer. When I've paid for them myself in the past, it was $3 a page. I think we don't have a choice. We need her style of minutes, which are hers, with the full detail at this point. So I think we need to look at that over the next couple weeks. Maybe Mr. Sandman knows stenographers. He can get a price from somebody, and we can take a look at it. But I think it's vital at this point.
For the record, Mr. Mayor, I'm not in agreement with that. Sounds like a loaded request to me.
Well, Amy, the August 5th minutes aren't done. The October 7th minutes aren't done. I don't fault Mrs. Anderson or her office.
Maybe if we focused on retaining our employees, we would have them to do the work.
I don't fault Mrs. Anderson or her staff one iota. It's just that
I don't either.
We're in non-compliance with our obligation to have minutes promptly available after a meeting. We need to help our office.
All right, Daleen, we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, you mentioned blighted buildings, and that just brought to mind one of our buildings. That's the American Legion building, which I think at previous meeting we decided that was going to be evaluated. Evaluation was going to be made of that to determine what needed to be done. Phil, do you have an update on that possibly?
No, I don't, Mr. Gouchard.
Okay.
That was in our meeting.
Yeah. Would you assure that that is being looked into?
I will.
Thank you. And speaking of minutes, one of the items that I have talked about before, and I did talk with Steve, and I have talked with the administrator about it, and that's our video equipment. It's been pointed out to me, and I don't look at the videos myself because I hate to see myself in the video, but it has been pointed out to me that the videos on Channel 97 are rotating between December and January?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's not acceptable. And I have discussed the item. I hope we can get that resolved. I'm going to call up the school myself if that can in any way help get it resolved soon. But I think it's for a committee that advertises that we're open and transparent and that we make things available to the public. I think we need to get that corrected.
If I may answer, Rodney, on that, we've talked about this a few months ago. I talked to the people at Oakcrest, and I also talked to Comcast, and I understood, and perhaps this bond ordinance that we just approved tonight, it has money for new equipment in it. But the problem is that the technology we're using here and sending perhaps a DVD to Oakcrest High School, the equipment that Comcast furnished when they started this years ago is a VHS tape. So the DVD disc has to be transposed onto VHS tape for the school to do it, and the school fits it in their schedule at their convenience. And Comcast says to me on the telephone, the lady used to be a reporter right in this audience, to tell you the truth. So she knows our town, and she said, we give you $70-some thousand a year. You should be spending it to upgrade the equipment.
Well, as we've discussed numerous times, we are spending the money to upgrade the equipment so that we can correct this problem, because we have tried to talk to the school numerous times, and we just don't have the equipment. So that's why we put it in the capital budget.
And the business about VHS, I think VHS is out. We're not, the new equipment is not going to use VHS.
Exactly, but until we buy it and give it to them, we won't have it.
That's right, and that's why we need to give that priority.
That's why it was in the capital budget.
Well, the problem is, even within the capital budget, we can't buy anything until we have the next year starts, and then after that,
No, we can.
No.
We have to wait 20 days. We adopted this tonight. We have to wait 20 days for the estoppel period, and after the estoppel period expires, that's when they can buy it.
even after that occurs, our guy has to work with them and deciding exactly what's going to be poured and so on and so forth. So there's still a waiting period, which I'd like to try to speed up as much as possible.
As I understand it, Steve is ready to go as soon as the date allows him. Steve has been ready and waiting. And Phil, I don't know if you can confirm that, but that's my understanding.
If I spoke with him.
And
Yes.
if it is, we just go word out to committee, please.
Very well.
Thank you.
All right, just a couple of things. I just want to remind everybody that our community cleanup day is coming on Saturday, and that the shredder and the electronic equipment, the electronic waste drop-off, the document shredding, and the roadside cleanups will be conducted at that time. And don't be like me and hold off on the shredding and then not be ready when the day comes. Also, the electronic equipment is a great opportunity to get rid of some of that stuff, some of which, if you got rid of elsewhere, you'd have to pay for it. So it's a great opportunity. And that's going to be from 9 to 12 for electronic waste drop-off, the document shredding, and the road
Add in for the
cleanups.
prescriptions, the old prescriptions.
And yes, we have a new one, thanks to Ingrid. The prescription drug disposal, which will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So that's a nice addition, and take advantage of it, please. It's right here, right in the back of this building. Yeah, you're welcome.
Is the shredding also, what time is the shredding?
9
Rodney?
to 12.
Okay, 9 to 12 as well?
Yeah, 9 to 12. Oh, yeah. Everything is 9 to 12 except for the drug pickup, and that's 10 to 2.
No, National Take Back Day is 9 to 12. The community cleanup is 8:30 to 12:30.
Oh.
That day is 10 to 2.
Okay. This says 9 to 12.
I've got 9 to 12 for everything except for the Operation Take Back, but anyway,
I got this from Lisa's office.
okay.
Where do they do the,
And I was just going to compliment how nice of a brochure this is, but never mind, Ingrid.
Well, it's still nice, it's just not completely accurate, that's all.
I'm being sarcastic, she knows.
And I just want to tell people, those who might be interested, there's going to be a there is a Stockton Center on Successful Aging, and they're having on May 13th, they're having an all-day session. Well, it actually goes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It'll be on the Stockton College campus. It's free, and the first 200 people actually get lunch also. And there are a number of presentations and workshops that are going to be conducted. It looks like, I don't know, maybe 20 here. So it might be something of interest. If anybody, you can look it up on the website. If anybody would like a number or a URL, I can give it to you here, but it will be on the website. I would search for Stockton and Successful Aging. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
It was a lot. Well, the last thing left to say is the racetrack will be opening on the 24th. The 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 29th, and 30th.
wow.
I think every year that's quite an event. Brings a lot of families out there to watch the horses run. And it's always nice because families gather there, and it's a nice sight to see.
Mr. Mayor, do I get to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were part of it, and I apologize to you. Go ahead.
I know, it's hard to believe, but I just wanted to commend Miss Reagan Patali, who is a young lady who wrote in with concerns about an issue facing our town, and we gave her an answer, but just really excited to see a young lady taking interest in what is going on around her. And I also wanted to thank the American Legion for their piece of correspondence to us with regard to the veteran set-aside work. It was a very nice note, and appreciated that they took the time to write that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Then I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public wish to speak? Let the lady sit. Go, okay.
I was being pushed by a couple of,
Pushed?
believe it or not. I'd like Rodney's comment about open and honest government. A few years ago, you used to have all the employees listed on your website with their salaries and benefits. That's no, oh, you can't hear me? I liked Rodney's comment about open and honest government, and a few years ago on the website, you had all the employees listed with their salaries and their benefits.
2010.
It's no longer there. And I don't know if you realized it's not there, but since you're considering a tax increase, I think, the taxpayers would like to know where their money's going. So we'd appreciate that if you reinstituted that on the township website.
Peggy, it's under the finance department. If you click on finance, there'll be a drop, there won't be a drop down. You have to go into their department, and then there'll be a place in there where you can find that information, but it is dated 2010.
I really went on that website, and I couldn't find it.
I can assure you it's there.
Can I ask you to put it on the front page, so I don't have to hunt for it, and actually have it updated with the new salaries and health care, because we know that health care has considerably increased in the last 3 years, as well as salaries.
I don't think we can give health information because it would indicate what type of,
Oh, well, I requested, I filed an Oprah request, so if it's available by Oprah, it should be available to the public.
And the school board has it on their website.
Ours is all listed.
Name, job title, salary.
Everything.
Education, MA 15, whatever.
Okay, just a suggestion.
How long
Thank
has
you.
that been the case?
Excuse me?
How long has that been the case on the school site?
It's been up for 2 years.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question to our CFO. Is the new information, I thought it was in the salary ordinance now, and that's why it changed. There's a salary ordinance. Which is where everything's listed, right? Because that ordinance gets updated whenever raises or anything are given. Right, okay. So is the salary ordinance on the ecode.com? I'm not sure. Okay, so Phil, if we could check on that. Okay, and then in terms of where your tax dollars are being spent, Peg, we have a lot of the presentations that we made to the audience that should be right on the front pages of the website.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I would just suggest having it on being able to click right on and see the list of employees. Thank you.
Marge Wilson with Atlantic Realty Management here on behalf of Meadowbrook Condo Association.
Where from?
Meadowbrook Condo Association.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Regarding an issue that we've had since the adoption of the new rental ordinance pertaining to the 2009 International Property Code as it pertains to the dryer venting at Meadowbrook. I'm not sure if you're all
Well, I'm
familiar
familiar with it since I had owned a couple of units there years ago.
Yes. Initially, the dryers, at least as they were sold to condominium owners, had a little box where the vent would go in and the water would be in there, and the people would run their dryers, then clean out the box. And most recently, with the adoption of the new ordinance, Mr. Frank Primavera has now started to fail our owners who have applied for COs for rental because it's not, the code says that it must be vented to the outside or be a ventless unit. And in this case, it's neither. So we've been failing COs for that recently.
Those are just the owners that rent to outside,
Correct.
correct? It doesn't pertain at the current time to people who own and live there.
No, it doesn't pertain to people that already are existing owners, nor does it pertain to people who sell their unit. You could sell your unit to someone and not have to be in violation, but if you rent it, you're in violation.
So then the only option at this point would be to buy the new systems that don't require.
Yes, there is a ventless dryer, or you can run a vent, and the concern is that running the vent now creates more of a fire hazard than it prevents, because you would have to run a distance with a vent out the side of the property, which does not exist currently. And now we would have the opportunity for lint to build up and cause a fire, which we've never had there before.
Bill, you've been familiar? Go ahead.
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. And Ms. Wilson is right that this is came up strictly through the occupancy inspections as part of rentals is now more detailed than with the resale. It's strictly, the smoke and CO detector and fire extinguishers. Now they have to meet the state housing code on the rentals, which includes the dryers being vented as established by the manufacturer, either a ventless unit or vented outside. That's the state code. It's,
There's no way around it.
Unless you can get and I think Mr. Primavera has suggested making application to the appeals board for some form of exemption in that development. But other than that, essentially his hands are tied.
Do you have the information where they could make that request to the appeals board?
So I understand, it would have to be a one-on-one type of situation.
One-on-one.
Every person that would be denied would have to apply to the appeals board. And I guess it could be a test case in that matter, but it's created a hardship. At this point, owners have done either A, purchased the ventless unit, which is over $1,000 for the dryer.
How much?
Over $1,000. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have to run a 220 line for that also, so there's additional expense.
Yeah, they don't run on the 120, right.
So that's one option. And the other is to run a vent, which I believe one person did, and then someone just totally took the washer and dryer out and rented for lesser money, which created somewhat of a financial hardship, but it got the CO. And then another person actually had an appliance company come in and disabled it's a stack washer dryer, so they disabled the dryer, so therefore it's rendered useless, and then they passed the CO on that. But of course, then you have to take a rent concession and inconvenience a homeowner when their neighbor can use the same device next door because they either are existing owner or have purchased the unit instead of renting it. I don't know what the answer is, but it's created some chaos.
What I would like to look at, because this is reminiscent of the COA fee ordinance where something gets adopted and you find out the damage to the little guy after the fact. I would like this International Maintenance Code, State Housing Code looked at as it relates to what Hamilton Township adopted and see if we could extract out this offending category, clause, paragraph, remove it so that this would not apply to the rental properties. Because to suggest that now they have to file to go before the appeals board is a little bit on the humorous side, because the person who pushed so hard for this is the person who's on that board. So I don't think he would want to be waiving it, but the suggestion that they would run the kind of ductwork that you and I have to vent the dryer is simply not possible, because the further you have to go to get to the outside to vent, the less efficient the dryer will work and creates a greater fire hazard. That's what was explained to me when I was switching my washer and dryer around in my house, that I didn't create a fire hazard. So that's the problem there. These brick structures from 1973, you can't just start punching holes in the brick facing and putting dryer vents to the outside. And besides, it's nowhere near where the interior cabinetry is, where the unit sits on the interior walls. It's nearly into the center of the structure. Roger, you're familiar with it as I am. So I would like to see, because it would be the least expense, I think, at this point, if we could take a look at whether we could amend our ordinance and take this category out and leave the rest of the ordinance intact, unless there's some other little clause that's hurting.
Well,
I don't know if that's
I think the issue is that it's not just our ordinance. It says that it has to be installed per manufacturer specifications, but it's also state fire code.
But then why isn't this applying to every single property?
Because the only properties that they do the inspection where the state, this part of the state fire code would come into play is the rental inspections.
So if we didn't do the rental inspections at all, we wouldn't have this issue, would we?
Not have this issue. Just as for
I understand.
30-some years.
I didn't expect that answer, to be honest with you.
So
it doesn't apply to the Woodlands, and it doesn't apply to Cologne Gardens or Pinelands Garden?
No, it applies to the rented units in the Woodlands, the rented units at Timber Glen, any rental unit where we go in and do the rental inspections. If they have a washer dryer in there.
In the unit.
In the unit, it comes into play. Some of the rentals have...
they're vented to the outside.
Well, not only vented to the outside, but with the apartment complexes, they have a laundry building where that's not the issue.
Mr. Mayor, I just wonder if there's a way that we could make an appeal to the appeals board as the township to consider an exemption that would stand for all applicants then.
Mr. Primavera's on vacation this week. I'll make a note, and when he comes back in next week, I'll raise that issue with him.
Then will we let Marge know, because she emails quite frequently?
Appreciate it. Thank you so
Spread
much.
that information.
Is it also possible, do we have any discretion as to how we do these inspections?
That's what
In
my
other words,
point
do we have to do everything on the,
Yes.
on the inspection
Yes.
list? We must do everything on the inspection list. Seems to me that we should have some discretion, particularly with an item like this that doesn't make any sense.
The fact is, though, the ordinance and the state code, if you're doing the inspection, it says that it has to be installed as manufacturer's specifications. Manufacturers specify that dryers have to be vented to the outside unless they're a ventless unit.
Well, I would hope that we had some discretion in that regard, but, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but
maybe
if
a
you
way
don't-
around it is say, we're not going to require the state fire inspection, but we create our own fire inspection.
I'll have to check with Mr. Primavera to see what,
It sounds like it's something we need
No,
to solve.
I think you're
I
you're
don't
you're going to run
disagree with you,
into.
Rodney. I think it's
We can
something
solve it.
reasonable that,
Yes.
is worth the look.
this falls under the law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
You got it, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if we do something that causes a fire, and
How many fires have ever been reported in Meadowbrook? Does anybody have an idea?
doesn't matter.
Virtually none.
It doesn't matter.
Of course, all we need is one.
Yeah, there was a lady, oh, you're a homeowner there? Go ahead, come on up.
Anthony Battistelli, I own 5 units in Meadowbrook. And they're all common.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. My name's Anthony Battistelli. I own 5 units in Meadowbrook. I've been there a very long time. As far as I know, I only ever remember one fire and one dryer fire that had nothing to do with ventilation. It was the dryer itself. Those units are very well built as far as we have cement between the units, cement walls, everything else. All of my units have 220 lines in them. I have all basically brand-new washer-dryer combinations. What do I do with them? I can't rent a unit without a washer and dryer. In this day and age, that's not going to happen. I have to, I've paid for all this already, and there's nobody else, as far as I know, there's no other township that requires this around here. From what I was told, the fire inspector in Egg Harbor Township made a statement that running vents in these buildings is a lot more dangerous than what we've been doing for 50 years, since the places were built. There's no gas in the buildings at all. The gas heaters are in separate little rooms outside the building. These are electric. There is basically no way for them to create a fire. If they back up and there's any back pressure, all modern-day electric dryers have a fuse like you have in your car that not only shuts it off, but the fuse self-destructs. That's in every electric dryer that's out there. So it's almost impossible to have a fire with this situation. The vented, or not vented, the ones that are ventless are little 110 units that basically are useless, and they require, from what I'm told, that whoever has that unit has to empty water out of it. That's not going to happen. The things that we've been using have always worked. There's never been a fire. They're used all over the world, basically. And this is just a huge expense. Right now, I have a unit. I'd be glad to have somebody come out and look. I have the whole place stripped out. I'm rebuilding the whole unit. You can see that because of the heating system and electric wires, the way they're run, there is no way, basically, to run a vent, except with many turns and maybe 20 to 30 feet. That would be a parallel thing collecting lint. It just isn't going to work. Any good answer, and the thing is, the neighbors don't have to do it. The people who, it's only us, the landlords.
Tony, why did you gut your place? Why did you gut your apartment?
A hot water heater upstairs, and the unit upstairs rotted through and flooded
drowned you out.
And drowned my unit, yes.
So if somebody wanted to see the construction
It's
of
all
Meadowbrook,
ripped out
which
now.
has always been the Cadillac of construction of apartments,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to see The construction, and I don't mean the quality, I mean what it looks like. Now is the time because you've got one wide open.
You can follow, you know, if somebody would tell me how to put a vent in, I'd put a vent in. It wouldn't be a problem, you know? But the thing is, there isn't a safe way to do it. And like I said, those little things, the 110 units, they're notorious for catching fire. That's why they have this link system in them. That's why I switched all mine over to 220 years ago.
Well,
you know?
it sounds like there's a problem that we need to find a solution for.
Absolutely.
And I guess the question is, what's the best way of going about this?
As far as I know, it's not a state law. I think it's more one of these recommended things. We get inspected by the state every 5 years. It's never been an issue. You know all that stuff. We've never really had a problem in there. We have a fire system through the whole place, fire alarm system. We're very well maintained.
Yeah.
So, Phil, can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, can I suggest that we form a committee and try to look at ways to resolve this situation? Because it is...
This came up before with the fire extinguishers. We were grandfathered. I don't know how it was done. That was done a few years ago. Why can't we just be grandfathered here?
Well, we need to look at possible solutions.
Well,
Okay.
the smart growth meeting that I have suggested, this is code enforcement. This comes under smart growth with Judy and I, so put it on the list.
The thing is, I can't rent my units.
Understood.
I had this unit out now. The girl that was in there, the tenant that was there for 3 years, thank God I had an empty unit that I was working on when somebody passed away, and I was able to get her in there. But now I have units that I can't rent.
No, I understand, Tony, but I asked earlier in the evening that we schedule a smart growth meeting for other purposes, but this could be put on the list because we already have the committee set up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was a proposal. Are we accepting that proposal?
Yeah, usually proposals have to go through the mayor, and I would agree with that proposal,
Sure, I don't have a problem with it.
All right, very good. Let's do that.
My name is Jill Hornberger. I live a couple blocks away from here, but I also own 2 units now in Meadowbrook. Excuse me, my daughter lives in one of them. The other one I just purchased, she's going to move into that one, and then I hope to rent the other one. But I'm in a bind now because of this dryer situation. And since there was a mention made that the state code requires this ventilation to the outside, excuse me, I don't think that's true for electric dryers. It is true for gas. We're not allowed to have gas dryers there because we have gas heat only, and that is paid for by our condo fees. So we can't have anything else that's gas. We can't have a gas fireplace, a gas hot water heater, gas stove, gas anything. So this is kind of a unique situation, and I think what we're hoping for is that there can be relief from this particular portion of the international code that you adopted.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Jill, since you're a lawyer, did you dig into the code and you know for a fact that gas is required and electric is exempt that you could share with us?
I'm a retired lawyer and no longer a lawyer because I don't practice.
You can't erase it out of the head. Would you learn it? It's there.
But we have talked to other townships, other municipalities, and...
Doesn't apply?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Phil, would you please just make a note of that about in relationship to other townships too, that may have adopted something and how it fits?
All right. So when can we look to follow up on this, Aileen? What do you think?
As soon as Phil can set up the smart growth meeting, we'll sit down and talk about it. It's the end of this week, it'll be the end of the week.
Go ahead.
Okay. You know, you were talking about the meetings, you haven't
Would
been
you
able to
identify yourself for the people?
Oh, I
please?
did. She was talking, you guys didn't hear me.
That's right.
Deborah K. Hensley. You guys were saying that you haven't been able to put them on the tapes on time. This has been since 2008, since I did the animal control thing. You guys keep saying you're going to put them on, 2008. Look how far this has been. Come on, guys, just get it on TV. The school board's getting theirs on every month. You guys can't do this for us by now? You're looking at 7 years already.
Sorry, I missed it. What is it you're
They
saying?
haven't our meetings are not on TV on time. Nothing is done. You guys, you're saying that the equipment, VHS and all this other stuff, how come the school puts them on right away? I mean, this has been going for how many years already? You guys are saying this excuse since 2008 when I was involved, and it was probably being said 10 years before that.
You can watch it on your computer.
Because we brought videotaping,
In 2000.
honestly, when we got elected, so it's been...
Well, that's what I mean. When I helped you guys get in there, when I was cheering for you and everything, it's been since that. You guys still haven't gotten
You can watch it on your computer.
Long time.
Everything is online.
It's online.
I know, but it should be on TV.
I understand that,
People
but
see it on TV. When we see this on TV, and when it finally does come out, the animosity that's on there from you guys fight back and forth, it's not nice. I mean, today you're saying that you guys are going to try to work together, but you guys could watch that TV for just yourselves and see how you all look on there. It's not very pretty.
It's called honest debate.
Well,
You
have to
understand
look.
how it works when you do debate things, okay?
Well,
There are differences.
but this is amongst you guys together. It's not even with us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bruce?
Thank you. The issue was brought up about the parking lot across the street, and as a member of the zoning board, I'd like to let the public know, or to correct some of it, or just enlighten. I wasn't here for the meetings where the Township Committee agreed to proceed with the parking lot. However, as a member of the zoning board, we received the application. In fact, we had two meetings. We have professionals, we have planners, engineers, our attorneys, we have a very active board. We asked many questions. It wasn't a rubber stamp for what you proposed. We actually, during one meeting, we suggested lighting, crosswalks, curbing, buffers. All of the appropriate notices went out to all of the 200-foot neighbors. So we looked at that very carefully, and we did change some things. And we had the safety in mind. Conditions were no parking on 13th Street because we were putting in 80 parking spaces. It is a safety concern, the way parking takes place on the other side of the street. People are backing out. It is a safety concern. During the public hearings, there were no objections from anyone, the neighbors. They were all notified. And in fact, the only public was Mrs. Dix. And at that time, she offered no criticisms, no concerns, no objections. We are a very open board, very concerned about the concerns of the public, particularly neighbors of such a project like that. So I think it needs to be stated that coming after the fact, Township Committee agreed to it. I'm sure it's in the budget. Everything was very carefully done at the zoning board, so coming here at this late hour after it's all signed, sealed, and delivered, and off the and on the way to be constructed. And by the way, I think everybody agrees it is a very needed project. So I think the time to object and to offer suggestions is at the public hearings that were, and actually there were two, because the one meeting it was discussed, it was sent back and back again. So there was adequate notice for everyone to offer their input. On the terms of a stenographer that we needed, we have neighborhood blight, and I agree, I think we do. However, those things take money, and the time to put those funds into the budget for consideration isn't after the budget is introduced at a public hearing. It's well before. So if anything is, those concerns, particularly things that are going to cost money, they need to be done during the budget process, not afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public?
Move to close. Oh.
Second.
Wait.
Okay.
Hi, Allison Hay. Mayor Sylvia, you had mentioned about the street hockey courts earlier tonight, and I just want to thank Public Works for going out there and doing such a great job this week. But you said that it was over the winter where the cracks developed. The cracks pretty much started immediately after that they were resurfaced. Bubbling began, and then the cracking, and now it just became...
And he went back out and he addressed them, and yeah, I think they were exacerbated, you're correct, by the severity of the winter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, why is this not covered under the warranty? Is there no warranty? Because it started pretty much within weeks after the resurfacing of it. So I was just wondering, is there like some type of warranty that would cover the, to correct the issues that are out there? I mean, I appreciate what Township is doing in Public Works, but I mean, that project was not done by Public Works. So why is it not the person who did the project correcting the project?
Good point.
I think Mike was...
That point was brought up, and I forgot what the answer was, but it was considered, and I believe there is an answer. But we'll check into it again.
I think because I've been reviewing the documents on the hockey courts and on the fencing, the work was done in August of 12, and I believe there was a one-year warranty. So at this point, I would say we're out of warranty. Whether or not there was a written contract that spelled out the one-year warranty, I'm not debating that point. I'm simply saying that I understand there was a one-year warranty, and we're beyond that.
It's a shame because the cracks started almost
right away.
immediately
But
after.
if you look at the length of them, and some of them run pretty long,
Yeah.
a lot of what he went back and corrected after the fact was some of the bubbling. And the bubbling was where, essentially where the water had been laying, okay? And during the curing process, I think it affected it, but he did come back and make good on that. I mean, as you look at it now, it almost looks like an earthquake had hit portions of both of the east and west. And it's considerable, as you know. But I think
more
it'll
so
be...
in the west than the east, but
They're
absolutely.
both bad now. I was out there both days, but I agree with you, yeah. And I think the point, we'll look into it. I don't know if there's anything, but we will.
Okay. Now, with the corrections being done, will there still be able to roller hockey out on?
I don't know. Let's see what happens when it's done. Obviously, when it's finished, and if they're able to use it, we'll see what they're going to open it up to.
Okay. I mean, because the summer hockey is a big program. There's over 300 kids that participate in that program, and I hate to see it
Well, we want to
shut
just
down.
make sure that, obviously, that whatever is curing there doesn't come loose again and would injure anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think the whole idea is to close it down to anybody. The intent is to repair it and open it up to the way it used to be used.
Are you saying street hockey or roller hockey?
Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
roller
you're not
hockey.
really
roller.
supposed to have roller hockey.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I think, and maybe Brett can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to fill in, and then it's going to be open up to foot, and then we have to reseal the top,
Top for the rest.
and then the full use can be reapplied.
I might make a comment. When my father put the asphalt floor down many, many years ago in our facility, he had to wait a long time for it to outgas.
To
The
do what?
asphalt to outgas, and the gassing that comes
Okay.
up is not necessarily the substance, it is a process. So, I don't know if there is,
I never heard that before.
if you, we had two facilities that had asphalt floors, and whether you've heard of it before, we know that it took, that was the first thing we put down was the asphalt, and we allowed it to outgas, and never had any problems with it.
Is that in the building you have now, the 1973 building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we decided to go to wood.
No, I just was trying to separate which building it was. 'cause
We,
this is the third
we
one.
had one in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, and one down here.
Okay.
And the outgassing was the secret. So,
I was just curious, because, I mean, so far, everything, a lot of it, what I heard tonight was money, money, money. Everybody wants to know where the money, money, money is. So I was just hoping that if it was still under contract, since it did start from the very beginning, that it would be something that would be covered instead of township employees having to go out when I know they're busy with the other stuff. So,
Yeah, we did talk about that before.
all right, thank you.
Internally.
Thank you.
Allison.
Anyone else?
great concern.
Move to close the public portion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Anybody else want to get out of here?
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.